Hey, what's up, everybody? It's the Sports Writer 33. I got my chips. I got my nacho cheese. I got my salsa. I don't have Captain Crunch. I hope I did. Otherwise, if I did have Captain Crunch, it'd be really, really awesome. Anyway, this video is basically going to be a preview of tomorrow's championship game between Kansas and Kentucky, two of the more prestigious programs in college basketball history, and also why my bracket is so messed up. Right now I'm going to ESPN.com to check out my my bracket, my college basketball bracket, and just to see how terrible it is. It's not as bad as last year. Last year, my whole Final Four I think was done for by the Sweet 16. I had three Big Ten teams in: Purdue, Michigan State, and Ohio State. None of them made it. Michigan State bowed out in the first round. I had Duke as well. If you recall, Duke didn't even get to the Elite Eight. They were the defending champs. They lost to Arizona. So let's go. Let me go to my bracket right now. Like I said, yesterday was just a really shocking game. The Kansas comeback at least. Tyshawn Taylor is just too quick. Kentucky, wow, they're a really good team. They have really surprised me. Yeah, I'm eating nachos. Kid Gilchrist, he's an energy player. He's one of my favorite players personally in college basketball. Him, Anthony Davis is just a man-child. His teeth are a little bit messed up. He has a unibrow, but he'll get in the NBA. He'll get a lot of money, and he'll be able to fix it. Like I said, more money means better barbershops. Okay, here's my bracket. Well, I made more than one bracket, but here's the main bracket I did. I was in a group with a bunch of friends on ESPN.com. My Final Four was Kentucky. I got that right, and I have them winning Monday. I had them beating Carolina, but Carolina lost because they lost Kendall Marshall, and that completely messed up that part of my bracket. Otherwise, I would have correctly guessed the championship game. Yeah, I had them, Carolina, in the championship. But the Final Four, I had Kentucky playing Missouri. Everybody know what happened to Missouri in the first game of their tournament. They lost to Norfolk State. While I was cheering for Norfolk State because, people kept pointing out to me, if a 15 seed or a 16 seed somehow wins, it won't mess up anybody's bracket because nobody picked those teams to win, so nobody's bracket will be completely busted. Everybody will just be kind of in the same boat of losing one of their teams losing a lot of points. So I have Missouri, them, Kentucky. Missouri, Ohio State, Kentucky, and North Carolina. Missouri lost in the second round of the tournament. Carolina lost in the Elite Eight. Ohio State, I cannot believe they lost to Kansas last night. I can't stress that enough. They gave the game away. Aaron Craft really impressed me, though. I completely forget about him giving up in the end of the game when they had a chance to foul. It was a really smart thing to do, and he did a really good job of actually making the ball hit the front of the rim. But it was a good call by the officials. He did leave. You have to wait for the ball to touch the rim. I think everybody who knows the slightest bit about basketball knows that. Yeah, you have to wait for the ball to hit the front of the ribs. So, good call by the official. Tough call to make in that situation, but he did the right thing. Kentucky, wow. They were down 2-0, and then in a span of, I think, 3 minutes or so, they took an 8-2 lead. So, it just shows you how dangerous they are. I think they could play against somebody like the Bobcats and give them a run. Maybe they wouldn't be able to win because Bobcats are professionals. Kentucky may have some guys that aren't even going to go to the NBA, but Kentucky's a really good team. Terrence Jones is going to be the real deal in the pros. Anthony Davis is going to be one of the best big men in the world, quite frankly, when he plays as probably the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So let's look at the box score of this Ohio State-Kansas game. That was the second game of the night. We're going to go backwards a little bit. Jared Sullinger, 13 points, 11 rebounds. Jared Sullinger really impressed me. Even though it took 2 ill-advised threes, well, not ill-advised, they were both wide open, but he shouldn't have taken them. 0 for 2 from beyond the arc. He had 13 points, 11 rebounds. Only 5 for 19 shooting, though. So a lot of his points were, coming from the free throw line. He did have 3 of 4 from the foul line. Aaron Craft finished with 11 points, 3 assists, 3 steals. But in the end, Tyshawn Taylor was just too much. Elijah Johnson had 13 points, 10 boards. He impressed me. Tyshawn Taylor, 10 points and 9 assists. His quickness was making a difference. Obviously, that steal at the end. And then he made the terrible pass to Thomas Robinson. I was jumping up and down. I don't know what he was thinking. He should have just held the ball. They didn't even need the dunk. If he would have held the ball, he would have made at least one of 2 free throws, and they would have locked the game up right there. But thankfully for him, he didn't become the Bill Buckner of Kansas Jayhawk basketball, and they ended up winning the game when Aaron Craft's free throw was short. William Buford also had a chance at a wide. Ooh, I believe it was not William Buford. I think it was William Buford. He actually missed the first 3. Deshaun Thomas got the ball back and maybe trying to draw a foul, but no balance at all. No strength really behind it. He missed a terrible decision at a 3. And then at the end, the Ohio State players, Aaron Craft kind of looked back at I believe it was William Buford and said like, "Oh, whose man is this? Whose aren't we supposed to be fouling?" And while the clock was still running, so in a situation like that, you have to just stop complaining, foul him, then maybe complain about it later. But that ultimately was how the game ended. Yeah, but Deshaun Thomas, 9 points, 4 rebounds. Like I said, he had 3 fouls, I believe, in the first half or early in the second half. So, yeah, he did not play good. I was disappointed with his performance. So Kansas obviously advances to Monday night. The first game of the day, the rivalry game, Kentucky-Louisville. It's a testament to how truly talented Anthony Davis is when Louisville has their whole game plan designed around, not letting Anthony Davis have that big of an effect on the game. And he's still, as it says here, 18 points, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks. Those were huge. He leads, I think he had 50 blocks this year on jump shots. So that's insane. He blocked, I think, 2 jumpers. He had a block that went out of bounds. He was hustling all over the floor. Anybody that hasn't watched Kentucky this year, you've heard about Anthony Davis, and yesterday was a perfect example of how good he can be. Terrence Jones only had 6 points, but in the tournament he's coming on more so than he was in the regular season. This team is peaking at just the right time, and they beat Kansas earlier this year. Gorgie Dang, he gave Anthony Davis all he could handle. He missed a few wide open dunks. I don't know how he did it, but he did have 7 points, 12 boards, so he was battling inside, but in the end, Davis was just too much. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, it's going to be interesting to see who he matches up on in the championship game. Yesterday he was guarding Payne Steve. I thought it was a really interesting strategy. Steve didn't score until the second half started. He had 11 points in the second half. So, once again, the championship is going to be, I think it's going to be a better game than when they played the first time. Kansas is playing a lot better than they were at the time when Kentucky beat them. Kansas playing together. They cannot afford, however, to fall behind. Even though Kentucky hasn't really had to grind out wins in the end of games this year. Yesterday, you might be able to say that a little bit. They were tied with about 6 minutes left. But even though Kentucky hasn't had to grind out games, Kansas cannot afford to fall behind because Kentucky is so talented and they're so good. Marcus Teague, Tyshawn Taylor. Marcus Teague's not on the top of his game. Tyshawn Taylor's going to rip him clean. He's going to steal every pass. So Marcus Teague, the turnover machine from Kentucky, he played better yesterday. I believe he had 6 of their first 10 points. So he's going to be a big factor. Darius Miller, whether or not he can hit some threes. He was 1 for 4 yesterday. Deron Lamb was 0 for 2. So let me look at my bracket. I've been talking about yesterday's games, and this is my bracket right here. This is how it looked. First round upsets, or first round games that really kill my bracket. VCU. Actually, VCU beating Wichita State. I only had Wichita State going to the second round, losing to Indiana, so it wasn't that bad. UConn losing to Iowa State messed up my bracket. UNLV losing to Colorado. That I did not see that coming. I knew Colorado was good because they did beat in the third round, or in the Pac-10 championship. They beat a very good Arizona team. Oh no, wait. Oh, I'm sorry, a very good Cal team. And did they play Cal in the championship? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, they did play Cal in the Pac-10, Pac-12 championship game. Cal didn't even make it past the first 4. Sorry about that little error right there. Duke and Lehigh, what happened? I know Duke was missing Ryan Kelly, and I'm sick of people making excuses about Duke losing because they didn't have Ryan Kelly. They played a 15 seed. I don't care how good CJ McCollum is. They played a 15 seed and they lost in a game they should have easily won. Lehigh put up a good fight against Xavier, but then lost. Yeah, like I said, I had Duke going to the Elite Eight. St. Louis, I did not have them beating Memphis. Long Beach State, I had them going to the second round and losing to Louisville. A few of my brackets, I didn't go to the Sweet 16. Norfolk State, Missouri. I was going crazy for Missouri to win that game. For Norfolk State to win that game. And then on the other side of the bracket, the Midwest and East regions, Creighton, Alabama. Personally, my dad thinks that it was a bad officiating at the end. I think it was good defense. Maybe he did get a piece of them. But Anthony Grant's clock management down the stretch was ultimately the detriment to his team. And they Creighton ended up losing in the second round to Carolina. Wow. And then we had a 12-13 matchup in the Midwest in the third round with South Florida, who upset Temple. And I saw that coming. In this bracket, if I would have changed it after I saw USF play Cal in the first 4 game, I might have changed that because they were really athletic. They really impressed me. I had them losing to Temple, so that hurt me. I had Michigan. I knew Ohio was dangerous. They had DJ Cooper. But I didn't have picked Michigan to lose, so that kind of messed up my bracket. Michigan losing to them by 5 points. San Diego State versus NC State. I should have picked NC State, but I know San Diego State was a really good team, so I'm not completely kicking myself for that. I had Georgetown going to the Sweet 16, but they lost in the third round to NC State, so once again, that's another. NC State was a really athletic team. CJ Leslie, really good, but I did not see that coming. The Elite Eight games. Let me see. I think I had one game where I correctly picked the Elite Eight matchup. Actually, that's it. Because Duke and Missouri lost. Ohio State, UNC, Kansas. It looks like Kentucky and Syracuse. So I picked 2 Elite Eight matchups right on the right side of the bracket, the East and the Midwest regions. I had Ohio State beating Syracuse, so I actually got that right. A lot of people did it. They thought Syracuse was going to win. First of all, Ohio State is better than Syracuse, in my opinion, more talented. Was better than Syracuse because Ohio State's out now. And then Syracuse didn't have Fat Melo. North Carolina, Kansas, if I'd known they were going to lose Kendall Marshall, like I said, I would have picked Kansas. Stillman White played good against Ohio, but against Kansas, he was not as spectacular. And unfortunately for me, Kansas went to the Final Four. So, if Ohio State, North Carolina would have beat Kansas, that would have been really helpful for me because I think they would have easily, if they had Kendall Marshall, he would have been playing in the Final Four, but they would have beaten Ohio State, and then I would have the championship game guessed correctly. I had Kentucky beating North Carolina for the second time of the season, this time 6-7-64 for the title in New Orleans on a Monday night. So, that kind of messed up my bracket, but let's preview. Like you see, my bracket's not the greatest, but it's not the worst. I have some things that I did correctly guess upsets. Other things where I completely tanked. My bracket completely tanked because of it. The championship game is going to be, I don't know. The game Kentucky-Kansas earlier this season was really, I knew it wasn't going to be very competitive because, Kentucky's so much better. Hopefully that's not the case. Kentucky, John Calipari's teams, if you notice, with John Wall, Terrence Jones, and Brandon Knight, especially last year, they get better as the season goes on. And this season, Marcus Teague's improving. Anthony Davis is learning how to play team basketball more so. That's going to help Kentucky in this game because they're not the young team that would fold under the pressure everybody thought they were. They're a mature team. They don't seem to get rattled. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist is the heart and soul of that team. They beat Kansas 75-65 earlier this year. And I don't know, it's going to be a hard game for a lot of people to pick, but for me the choice is obvious because a lot of people are going to say that, Kansas is peaking at the right time, like I said Kentucky was earlier in the little broadcast. Kentucky, they're just so much better than Kansas. They're more talented. Kevin Young from Paris, the town that I live in, it's going to be really exciting to watch him play. I hope he does well, but Kentucky, I have them for my bracket's sake and for the sake of being professional about actually picking the correct winner of the game, who I think is going to come out on top. Kentucky's just too good. I predict that Kentucky's going to win in this game 75-54. Kentucky's going to win by 21 points because once Kentucky gets going, Thomas Robinson is the heart and soul of that team, but Tyshawn Taylor, he is improving, but I think he's one of those players, and not to be, biased or cruel to a player, but he's one of those players I think if pressure starts, mounting, if things start to get tough, he might end up, folding them and, just throwing his hand in, and Kentucky will take advantage of that because Kentucky, if you give them any kind of hole, they're gonna just walk right through it. So yeah, I think Kentucky's gonna win that game easily. Now I'm also interested to see whether or not they put Michael Kidd Gilchrist